All right, so the 2022 NBA Finals matchup is now set. Of course, it's going to be the Warriors and the Celtics. The Celtics will move on to the finals, of course, tonight, beating the Miami Heat in Game 7. And honestly, I'm just really excited as a Warriors fan, of course, but also as an NBA fan, because these are two teams, very historical, celebrating their 75th anniversaries, both of them respectively. And so I am very excited just to see a good series. Of course, I really, really hope the Warriors win. But as a basketball fan, this is a very, very good series. So sort of like how I did for the last series for the Warriors, I think I'm going to talk about what I think will happen in this series, what I hope to happen, and sort of just dive into it. So, yeah, I mean, okay, if we're looking at head-to-head matchups, Warriors and Celtics this season, and, sort of a disclaimer, I don't think looking at, head-to-head matchups from a season is really relevant because teams change. It's clearly not super relevant. The Warriors were 1-3 against the 3 playoff teams they played so far in their series. So, it's just not something like to be taken super seriously. But, for the purpose of just looking at it, in the first matchup, the Warriors beat the Celtics way back in December by 4 points, 111 to 107. That was a very close game. I remember it came down to the end. It came down to the final minutes. In the most recent matchup, the Celtics won pretty big by 22 points. But you got to remember, the Warriors lost Steph Curry in that game. That was the game he injured his foot, and he'd actually after that game remain out for the rest of the regular season. And when Curry was hurt in that game, I believe the Warriors were only down by 8, and that's very much within striking distance. So to think that they were that close with Curry, and then of course not having Curry, of course they're not going to play as good. So, yeah, I think the Celtics overall are a very good team. I think the Warriors have a better roster personally, especially considering that we're going to probably have Gary Payton return and probably step up. And then, of course, have Iguodala probably return and hopefully make an impact with his mentality and his mentorship. But I think the Celtics are a good team. I mean, here's the thing. If you look at their series, the Celtics, one thing I could critique about them is they haven't really faced a team that has been truly healthy. They played the Brooklyn Nets, of course, in the first round. They swept them, but the Nets didn't have Ben Simmons. I mean, Ben Simmons hasn't played in a very, very long time for any team, but who's to say that it's even a sweep if that happens? I mean, the Celtics barely swept them, which is funny saying that, but they won a lot of their games very, very closely. So, a lot of their games could have went either way. Now, in their second series, of course, they played the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Milwaukee Bucks have the incredible Giannis Antetokounmpo, but they didn't have Chris Middleton, who was obviously very impactful in their championship run. Now, against the Heat were, pretty healthy in that series, but they also were banged up with injuries, and they had a lot of guys, I think, playing through injuries too. So it's not to say that the Celtics were handed, a path to the finals, but they definitely benefited from other teams having injuries. And I'm not saying the Warriors didn't either. I mean, John Morant got injured in that series. Obviously, the Mavericks had a couple injuries, but I think the Warriors sort of showed they could win every series pretty easily. I mean, obviously, the most losses they had in the series was against the Grizzlies, and in that series, they lost against the Grizzlies when they didn't have John Morant. So I just think that's sort of a dumb argument to bring up, because we all know the Warriors are dominant right now, and that's a fact. I don't think anyone can really question that, and if you try to question that, I mean, I feel like it doesn't really add up, just looking at the Warriors, right? So my prediction straight up, I got the Warriors winning against the Celtics in the finals in 6 games. Now, I think the Warriors are probably going to lose one game at home. I think it's probably going to go this way. I think the Warriors are probably going to win their first 2 at home. I think they're going to go up 2-0 in the series. Then I think the Celtics are going to steal the next game. They're going to be motivated. Usually that first game back home, teams in game 3, especially if they're down in the series, they're going to be motivated. Then I think the Warriors are going to win game 4, probably lose game 5, and then winning game 6 and win and celebrate a championship. Now, I know that obviously the Celtics are a challenge, and I very much would have preferred to play the Miami Heat. But I also think that if we're looking at roster, I mean, yeah, they have Jaylen Brown, we have Klay Thompson, they have Jason Tatum, we have Steph Curry, but we also have Andrew Wiggins, we have Gary Payton II, we have Looney, and a lot of these guys you can't really draw comparisons to on the Celtics. They do have, of course, guys like Grant Williams, and they have other guys like Al Horford, but for all I'm concerned, I don't really think those guys are the same caliber as some of these Warriors players. I think the Warriors have tons of playoff experience, I don't think anyone on this current Celtics team has ever played in the finals. And the Warriors have, years of experience with this. And also the Warriors have home court advantage, which I never thought would be a big impact, but it actually is. So, I think the Warriors are going to win in 6 games. I think it's going to be a great series. I think the Warriors are a very dominant team, but I also think the Celtics are challenged. So I think it's going to be our most challenging series yet of this series, of this season, of this playoffs. So yeah, guys, let me know your guys' thoughts. I'll see you guys later, and yeah, go Warriors.